Hello, how are you? We're a little early. We have, a few more minutes and then we'll jump right in tonight's discussion. Thank you so much for joining us tonight for our Wedding Wednesday chat. I hope you all are ready to rock this thing out. And I know you guys are in wedding planning season, so this is a great opportunity to get a couple notes that I help you throughout the process. All right, we'll give you probably like another 3 minutes. And let's wait until some more people jump into the live and we'll get the show started. All right, we have one more minute and we'll go ahead and get the show started. All right. 2 more minutes, you guys. 2 more minutes. 2 more minutes. right, we're about to get this show going. We have less than a minute, probably 30 seconds left. All right. All right. It's 8:05, so it's time to thrive. Well, good evening, everyone. My name is Charlena, and I am one of the owners and co-founders of Any Event Linen and Chair Rental, your boutique wedding rental company based out of Lakeland, Florida. One thing that sets us apart from other rental companies in the area is that we actually service weddings up to 150 guests. So, just as the business name states, we are the chair company, the linen company, and everything else in between from charger plates and flatware. One of the things that definitely makes us one thing that makes us stand apart from other people in the area also is that we do provide complimentary setup and breakdown. And that's something that all of our couples enjoy. We truly believe in, allowing our couples and their close families to actually be able to join the day with them. So today we're going to talk about how your wedding guest count does impact your budget. And I know that budgeting is the tough conversation that a lot of couples have to actually have the discussion about, because at the end of the day, how much you can spend or how much you can save is one of the most important components of wedding day and wedding planning. So if you have your pen and pencil, go ahead and grab it. And of course, you can always rewatch this. But let's jump right in. So one of the elements of your wedding guest list is, who will you invite? I know, in my personal life, there's so many people you want to invite because some of them have a major impact and some they have a minor impact, but you want them to be a part of your wedding day. So when you think about your wedding list, your wedding guest list, you're really thinking about, who do I want to invite, who I really don't have to invite, and who's just a no right off the bat. So the most important element when you look at that guest count, is saying who's at the top of that list. And the crazy thing is that a lot of people they don't really categorize who they're inviting. You just have this long list of individuals that you want to invite. Normal, don't worry. But according to the Not Wedding Study, they say an average wedding size is 117 guests. And it's very interesting because a lot of times when you do go to weddings, you always see smaller, especially after COVID, or you see more than 117 guests. And believe it or not, the weddings that we have served, we've been around 117 to 150. And that is what you consider a medium sized wedding. So kudos to the Not Wedding Study because they were right on. So for the most part, when you are creating this wedding list, the size typically includes, your family, your friends, and their partners. So whether they're married or not, they get to invite their boyfriends. And then if any of these individuals have children, then you are including them on that guest list. And then you're stuck with the people who want to come to your wedding, but you don't think they're that important. So then you're sitting out there like, oh my goodness, are they going to be upset? But don't forget those individuals that you do send holiday cards to, your coworkers, your parents' friends. These are all the people that you do consider when you're creating that list. However, remember the budget is a big part um, of your guest count, or your guest count is a big part of your budget. So the areas that actually are impacted the most by your guest count are your wedding budget, of course, because that tells you how many people you can or cannot invite, your wedding venue, food and beverage, florals, ceremony and reception chairs, and linens. So let's just jump right into the budget. So, the wedding budget, as stated previously, is the most important factor because that's where you learn, how extreme can you go or how tight you have to be, or if you fall somewhere in the middle. And like I said, it really shows the reality of what can and cannot be done. And honestly, once you break it down a little more, you really get in a space of reality as to who can we really invite. And it's very interesting. After some research, I actually found some of the average expenses or the average wedding cost depending on your location. And believe it or not, it was very funny. It said that New Jersey's average wedding was $47,000. $47,000. That's a big chunk of change. But then we're based out of Florida, and it said the average wedding cost here was $27,000. And then, of course, if you go to Wyoming, that was $15,000. So you have to remember too that your geographic location is a big part of that. And depending where you go, that will impact the overall cost. Just remember your guest count depends on your budget. And then when you drop in that geographic component, that could be the game changer. One of the questions that I love to have couples think about, and I don't say it out loud, of course, but the first question is, even between you and your partner, is how are we paying for this wedding? Now, some of us, we pay it on our own, while others, they have the golden touch of their parents, different family members that actually jump in financially to help make this dream wedding come true. And once you can actually identify who those people are who are giving or are contributing to your wedding, that's another way where you can determine how much money you have. And then, like I said previously, how many people are you planning to actually attend? Or how many people are you planning to really invite? Not all the extras like your coworkers, but who are the people that you want there, must have, and all the above? So, one of the areas that is definitely impacted by your wedding count is your wedding venue. Remember, your wedding venue is definitely typically top of the list because it's the most expensive component for sure. And it is that important because you can only rent a certain venue based on the quantity. So all venues, they do have a maximum guest count or maximum physical guest count there. And so usually it can run anywhere from 50 to 500. And then one thing you would notice all the time is that venues that typically house more individuals are typically those like big brand hotels, and then a lot of outdoor wedding venues. So this means you have the rights of passage to host your weddings at a fancier venue, which means the cost will increase, but you'll have the glitz and glam, right? So there's so many things that if you do go to a larger venue, there are so many benefits, and that's an important component too. And one thing about having a larger guest count, you can't go to some of those smaller venues, of course, right? So then you're actually limiting yourself to what that guest count is. So, like I said, if you're doing a larger guest count, definitely look at the branded hotels. But if you're looking at a much smaller, you can definitely do something local, a local hotel, not a big brand hotel, but something local. A local, farm, barn space or location because they can house those individuals. The next impact, how your guest count can impact your wedding, it impacts your catering and your beverages. So, one thing to remember is that your food and beverage is typically based on a cost. So for every person that you do invite to your wedding, there is a cost associated with each person. I've seen anything from like 200. I saw something the other day was like $500. So once again, that number, the grand total, is dependent upon how many people you invite. And then let's take it a little step further. Your guest count also depends on your meal type. Now, if you want to have a steak, a ribeye steak for your guests, that's the big game changer there. But let's say if you don't mind having chicken, then that may allow room for your budget. But also, when you have the individuals who have dietary restrictions, maybe the person's vegan, that can increase the cost. So you have to think about this. If everyone at your wedding ate chicken, it'll probably be much cheaper than if everyone at your wedding was vegan or vegetarian. Because in that space, you have to create specialty menus for those individuals. Also, with catering, one thing to consider about that guest count is the beverage costs. Now, I'm talking about non-alcoholic versus alcoholic. It was very interesting. I saw in this think piece that I read the other day, and they were saying that if you have an outdoor wedding, you really have to think about how much more water you'll need in the reception area and the cocktail hour. And I think a lot of times it's definitely something that is overlooked because you're like, hey, I'm only out there, or they're only out there for 30 minutes, 45 minutes, an hour. But you have to calculate how much water you're going to need per person within that cocktail hour and then within the reception time. So, another thing to think about when you're looking to invite a lot of people or you're keeping it safe and inviting a little group of people. Another area that a lot of couples tend to forget is the ceremony and reception linen and chairs. Now, one thing for sure, we cannot not have chairs or seating or linens for those individuals who are actually at the wedding. And typically, a lot of clients that we work with, they'll have one chair for the ceremony and a different style chair for the reception. So once again, it goes back to the food and beverage. How much does each chair cost per person? So when you're thinking about your chair rentals, think about that. Some clients, we've seen them, they use the ceremony chairs and transfer them to the reception space. But does that work for you? Does your rental company charge more to make that transition? And that's another budget piece that you really have to think about. Um, so another thing is, and I think sometimes it's overlooked, is that if you're hosting, let's just say 50 to 150 guests, it'll be easier to find that quantity needed. However, on the other hand, if you're having a wedding that's, over 175, maybe over 200, you may find yourself spending more money and hiring multiple companies at once. So let's just say, for instance, if you use rental company A and they max out at 150, but you need 300, you'll find yourself paying for the chair with rental company A, their delivery fee and their setup fee, and then you have to find rental company B and you have to pay whatever their fee is, their rental and their setup fee. And the only thing is that that's going to impact your budget, especially if the chair count or rate and quantity is different. So when you're thinking about that guest count again, that's just something to think about, because now typically if you needed 300, right? 300 for your ceremony, you're gonna need 300 for the reception. So now you're talking about spending, over $1,500 easy, over 2 grand easy. So once again, you have to consider that into your guest count, because now you're taking away at minimum $2,000 just on chairs and not even taking into consideration the linens. Now, during that reception, everyone has to have napkins, tablecloths, and flatware. And for instance, like with us, there is a fee for a 5-piece flatware. Now you have to take that 5-piece flatware, multiply that by the number of guests you'll have, and that's the cost. So, as mentioned earlier, when you look at food and beverage, or ceremony rentals, there are things that you have to consider. And the last thing, and I want to drop it, the last thing is the chair style. One thing that, like for instance, we do offer Shivari chairs, which are very traditional and classic. You can never go wrong. But let's say you want ghost chairs. Ghost chairs typically run from $8 to $12 a chair. So the question is once again, if I have white padded folding chairs in the ceremony and I want to go a step up, what does that look like? But then the kicker in all of this is that sometimes new style chairs are very limited. So then what? So if I want the Willow chair and it's going to cost me $15 a chair, but no one in the venue has, or no one in the area has the needed quantity, then what? You have to pay someone else from another city or another county to bring those in. So, as mentioned earlier, it's just very strategic when you're looking at your ceremony and reception chair linens and chairs, that you really take into consideration again how many guests will need them. Are there any guests who would need special seating? Because within these chairs, there are weight limits. So, do you have someone that may need a sturdier chair versus other people who can just get in a chair that, sits 500 pounds max and you can go from there? So, your guest count, like I said, your guest count is truly the game changer in all of this. And it's really something worth to think about. So, as always, thank you for joining us this evening as we had our wedding Wednesday. As always, if you have any questions, feel free to drop them in the chat below. Like I said, we are a rental company based out of Lakeland, Florida. So we sit right in between Tampa and Orlando. And if you all are ever in need of any rentals or just advice, feel free to follow us on Instagram and Facebook at Any Event lc.com. Or if you just want to check out our rental inventory, it is anyeventlc.com. And if you're not a big chatter on the phone, you can definitely always chat with us on the website or shoot an email our way. Thank you guys so much. And we hope you have a wonderful week. Bye, you guys.